Right, it's funny that it's interesting right away. The first thing that I see is that it's not full, right? So it's interesting because the first thing that's going through my mind is people don't want to hear accountability. And this is what's interesting is my story is I don't want to share about accountability. This is one of my hardest topics, which is interesting because it's probably what I teach and work with business owners more than anything else on. So here's why it's my hardest topic, because if you go back 10 years to when I was first put into a leadership role and you use the term accountability, number one, I don't think I could have spelled it. Number two, I'm not the guy that you look at that says that's the person that should be up in front of everybody else teaching other people about accountability, because it's not in my nature to be accountable, which means that I've got a lot of things running through my brain, I've got lots of good ideas, and I'm all over the place. So really quickly, my people began to understand that when Jordan says something, if you just wait, he'll forget he said it, he'll never come back and check on it, and it really doesn't matter. In fact, if you go ask him for help, he'll probably tell you something, and he'll forget he said that, and he won't follow up on that. So I'm coming from a place, when I talk about accountability, that this is one of my hardest topics. But what's interesting is I do train it every day. It's what people invest in me to be able to help them with accountability. So that being said, I'm kind of glad I got that out of the air, because it's been a journey that I'm on. This is I can't do what I need to do without accountability. And the truth is that without the first part of this, we can't even get there. There's two things that we find over and over again when we go into a business. Now, when I say we, I've got 5 partners that I work with, and we're in hundreds of companies a year. We're training thousands of leaders and salespeople, and we get the privilege of opening up the doors. Linda Allison's sitting here. She's going to be talking. Which session is it? Next session? Third one, and you're going to be right here, the third one. You know, she's doing the same thing. She's going into businesses, sitting with business leaders, and she gets to see things. Now, what's interesting, when you're in your business, that's called being subjective. You can't see all these things. But me and my partners, we find over and over again, there's 2 things that are missing in every company that we run into. Number 1 is clarity, and number 2 is accountability. Clarity is knowing what are we trying to do, where are we going, and accountability is what are all the things that it takes to get there, and are we doing what we say? So that's where we come to my story. So I start into leadership. I'm trying to move my department, my division, my company from one spot to the next spot. But I'm like a squirrel running around. I don't know if you've ever seen a squirrel. I don't think they know what straight lines are, except if you try and shoot them, right? But they're all over the place. They're quick. I was a squirrel. Not only that, there was lots of squirrels around me. I was very distracted. In fact, Kevin West is going to be talking. I think he's in the 1 o'clock session as well. Kevin asked me, he said at one point, he said, what I want you to do, Jordan, I want you to take everything that's in your to-do list, because I didn't have it written on one piece of paper, and I want you to put it all down on paper. Every single thing that's on your to-do list. I'm like, what do you mean, Kevin? Like everything? He said, everything. When I finished, I had 81 items on my to-do list. So then he said, I need a couple buckets. I need you to put those in a bucket. You get to choose the buckets, I'll pick 2 of them. He gave me 5 buckets. He said, anything that fits in those buckets, you can keep. Everything else you need to get rid of. I'm pretty sure I eliminated 2/3 of that list just because they were ideas. But that's where I lived, right? Didn't know where I was going. Didn't know what it took to get there. Not only that, my people didn't know where we were going, and I wasn't holding them accountable to anything. So here, I want to talk to you guys a little bit more about clarity and accountability. We'll take a little bit of a deep dive into what does clarity mean, how do we get some of it, and then what does accountability mean? How do we grow in that area? If you have a question, do not be afraid to ask. I'll be glad to interrupt me, stop me, or if I'm not clear. Fair? All right. So the truth is that the only way that you can ever change any of these things, it has to start with you. I really wish that I could go to a leadership conference and I could figure out how to change them. How I could change my direct reports, how I could change my clients, anything that I'm working on, it would be so much easier. But the truth is, if it's to be, it's up to me. It has to start with me. So here's my question. Do you have clarity and accountability? Are you crystal clear about what you need to accomplish in 2019? On average, most leaders have 10 to 12 objectives that they're trying to accomplish. The leaders that have 10 to 12 objectives typically accomplish 0 to 1. Studies have found, history has found, we at the Ruby Group have found, that if you will narrow that down to 1 to 3 incredibly important things that you're willing to focus on and drive all your energy and effort into, you have a chance. So if you think about it, the chaos that is happening in your environment, in your department, in your team, is really back on you. The only way that this is going to change is you have to go first. This is one of the things that I hate the most. In fact, the first time that I really understood a little bit about what accountability meant, I was sitting, Kevin West was in our company, and he was coaching us, and he was taking us through some self-leadership things. And I'm sitting in the room with 10 or 12 other leaders from our organization, and Kevin starts talking about bumps. And I had never heard of bumps before. But he said that every morning what he would do is he would bump into his direct reports. Kevin, what does that mean? He said, I would just stop in their office or wherever they were, and I would just check on them. And I'm like, Kevin, I don't understand. What, you check on them every morning? Yeah. Well, what does that look like? And he starts explaining. And he spends 5-10 minutes with each person just to see where they're at. I was sitting at the other end of Kevin. We were in a conference room. I literally took my pen and I set it down on the table. I had so many things on my plate at that moment. We were in the process of, we were replacing our reps that were out in the field. We had about 8 reps, and we were going through a contract change. I was spending 90% of my time working through what that transition was going to be like. My plate was full. I put my pen down because I decided if that's what leadership is, I don't want anything to do with it. I was stressed out, I was done. And I just remember thinking, I think I'm done. I don't want to be a leader. And you know how you do, you just kind of sit back a little bit, I cross my arms, cross my legs, and I'm just like, I was having a little bit of a hissy fit. Somewhere, I'm glad it was towards the beginning of the meeting, because somewhere in that meeting, the thought came to me. I don't have to be Kevin to start. I don't have to be great at this to start. In fact, I'm allowed to stink at it at first. And I thought, you know what? I might not be there today or tomorrow, but I'm going to start somewhere. I don't know where you're at on your leadership journey. Maybe you're not where I'm. Maybe you haven't thought about quitting in the last week. Maybe you haven't thought about stopping in the last 3 weeks, maybe month. But the truth is that we have to pick up the pen and make the decision, I'm going to start where I'm at. So I made the determination that what I'm going to do is the following week, I'm going to try to get at least 3 bumps. I got 1. Now, I had about 7 or 8 direct reports at the time. That means 1 person. Now, what freaked me out is I knew that as soon as I stopped in somebody's office, as soon as I was in there, they were going to ask me questions. Because guess what? Their plate was full. They were overwhelmed. And as soon as they asked me for help, I knew I couldn't help them. I knew I didn't have any capacity. I was overwhelmed. So why am I going to stop in there? I mean, what am I going to tell them? Oh, I'm sorry. Sucks to be you. Too bad. I think the following week, that first week I got 1. The following week I got 3. And it didn't change overnight. What I started realizing is it's not fair to my people if my plate's full. And I had everything mixed up. I thought that they were there to serve me and to be able to help me to take my business forward, my goals forward, my division forward. What Kevin helped me to realize is that's not what I was there for. I was there to help them. They were the real ones that were doing the work. I had completely missed that. If it's to be, it's up to me. It has to start here first. So let's talk about what does clarity and accountability mean. Clarity is an interesting thing. I'll be honest, most companies, when I go in and I start asking, what's the vision? Where are we going? What are we trying to accomplish? Depending on who I ask in that organization, I get different answers. Very rarely does somebody say, here's what we're trying to do. So there's usually a process of what it takes to get through that. Now, we at Sandler use something called the success triangle. And what we do is there's 3 components. It's a triangle for a reason because it takes 3 things to be good at anything if you want to be successful. In the bottom right is technique, the green one over there. Technique is how I do something. If you're thinking about golf, technique is how I grip the iron, how I hit the shot, what club I'm using. It's all the different things I do there. Most people, when they come to us, they're looking for some type of technique. They're like, Jordan, this is a golf example, but hey, I slice, right? They want me to fix their slice. What they don't realize is that technique is only a small percentage. And if you've ever golfed, you know that when you're over a tough putt, technique means nothing. It's really the thoughts that are going through your head that mess you up. Because all of a sudden you're thinking, uh-oh, if I miss this putt, they win. Or if I make this putt, I can win. Whatever it is. And that's what really makes a difference. And you're shaking there in your shoes and you barely make it. Technique is 2% of our success. 98% of success comes from behavior that drives attitude. 98% of success comes from behavior that drives attitude. That means the things that you do on a regular basis to put you in the positions that you need to be, that's what makes a difference. So let's dig into behavior. Let's dig into what it looks like. And the easy reference for golf, and I don't know why I'm using golf this morning, but if you want to be good at golf, guess what you have to do? You got to play golf. You got to practice, right? That's the same concept I realize. If I want to be a great leader, I'm going to have to start leading. If I want to be good at accountability, I'm going to have to start using accountability, being accountable, doing all those things, and I'm not going to be great at first. And it's okay. I don't have to be great. So let's dig into behavior a little bit. There's 3 components of behavior. And the top one is at the top for a reason. It's goals. That's the clarity. Most organizations simply do not have any clarity on where they want to be. What do they want to accomplish? You know, it's interesting. Tiger Woods, greatest golfer of our lifetime. What is it, 5-time Masters champion now? 4-time? Wow. Does anybody know what his goal is? It's been since he was a little boy. He wants to have more majors than Jack Nicklaus. He was very clear on his long-term goal. Long-term is more than 2 years. Every January, I sit down and I work through, what do I want my life to look like? What's going to happen in my world? I'm trying to figure out, where do I want to be? Who do I want to be? How do I want to do it? Organizations are looking for, where do we want to do? Is it a new market that we want to go into? Do we want a different culture? Do we want something to change in our world? You have to have some kind of long-term goal. If you don't, and this is like most people, it's like literally jumping in your car, turning on the GPS, not putting a destination in, and then just starting to drive. Every single time you come up to an intersection, your GPS is not going to tell you where to go. It's just going to tell you where you are. As soon as you put a destination into your GPS, it changes everything. Because now when you come up to an intersection, it's going to tell you go left, go right, go straight, go the other way. Your goals are your GPS. Without that, there's no reason to even turn the GPS on. You have to have clarity. Now, what happens is once we know where we're going, what that large goal is, what's the vision, what are we trying to accomplish, then we can start driving it into, what does that look like on a monthly, daily basis? And those are the 2 on the bottom. What do I need to change or do in the short term to be able to get me there? One of my goals, I have some specific things that I want to accomplish by the end of my 40s. I've turned 43 this year in June. And 45 to 50, I have some big plans of where I want to invest my time. And my goal is not to spend it 100% inside my business. I want to be able to take time away from my business, funded by my business, to be able to go support missionaries. That's my big why. And I believe that's going to push me into what my goals are for my 50s and 60s. This didn't come overnight, right? Finding things like this, what you're passionate about, what you care about, takes time. It's hard work. Every morning when I write in my journal, I write down what I'm trying to accomplish. I keep my goals in front of me. The amount of times that you can get distracted from where you're headed is incredible. The amount of fires that can come up. Long-term, short-term, and daily. Have you guys ever heard of Akiva? This is a guy that was probably, they say he was after Jesus. He had some writings, that's how they know who he is. So maybe 300, 400 AD. And he tells a story of one day he was deep in thought and he was walking home. And he was walking home in the dark, and as he was walking home, he missed the turnoff for his village, the path, because he was deep in thought. He keeps walking. The path led him to a Roman compound. As he walks up to the Roman compound, all of a sudden out of the darkness, he hears a voice saying these two things. Who are you and what are you doing here? He picks his head up. He thought he was on his way to his village. He's stunned. The Roman soldier again says the same thing. Who are you and what are you doing here? An epiphany goes off in Akiva's head. He yells up at the soldier and says, how much do they pay you? And he said, 5 drachma a day. He said, I'll double it if you come stand outside my house. And every day when I walk out of my house, you ask me those 2 questions. Who are you? And what are you doing here? You know, you're created for greatness. When God put you together, there was a specific reason why He created you. He made you special. When it comes to uniqueness, you won the race. There's nobody else on this planet of 7 billion people that is just like you. You have unique DNA. You have unique talents and gifts. It's your responsibility to find out why He made you. Why did He put you in the environment that He did? You didn't pick where you were born. You didn't pick your family. You didn't pick the location. You didn't pick any of that. But He had a purpose for you. That's what clarity is being able to understand that. The same is true of your organization. You didn't happen there by accident. What is the goal? What is the unique ability for your organization, your leader, your team that you lead? We cannot have accountability without clarity until we're clear on that part. So a couple different things that go into clarity is just being able to ask the questions. What are we doing? Why are we going there? These are just big picture questions. Honestly, as you get better at this and you start picking something, these are just questions that you have to answer. But then it's not just the left side, it's the top right. Does everybody else know where we're going? That's one of the hardest things that we do as leaders, is continue to communicate where we're going and why we're going to be there. Why is it worth it? Why is it important to them? Do they want to go there? Do they care? My goal in my organization is to leverage my company to be able to help me get to my personal dreams, my personal visions. That's why the company's there, right? I'm part of an organization called the Ruby Group. There's 6 of us. I'm not the leader of that organization. The leader of our organization has chosen our direction. He supports me in my vision. He helps me to leverage everything that the company offers to be able to help me to get me to where I want to go. He knows my personal vision. He asks me about it. We talk about it. That's what accountability is. Clarity and accountability. So let's talk about accountability. And this is the part that's hard for me. Accountability is simply doing what you say when you say you'll do it. It's not complicated. James, the book of James says that our tongue is one of the hardest things to tame. And I'll be honest, I like hearing myself talk. And there's many times that I share things or I say things, and in the back of my mind I'm thinking, yeah, that would be a good idea if it happens. It's a little bit like when I tell my kids it's a summer evening and they say, can we go get ice cream? And I say, yeah, we can go. We'll go later tonight. But what I really mean is that if everything lines up and we get all these things done, then we'll go. And then we go throughout the night and Grandma and Grandpa stop by. Supper goes a little bit longer. We end up doing something a little bit extra. And the next thing you know, it's 9 o'clock and it's bedtime. And I'm not feeding my kids ice cream right when it's bedtime. I don't know if you guys have ever tried that. It doesn't work. And then I say, well, we're not going to go. Now they're really confused because Dad said we're going to go get ice cream. And now he's saying we don't have time. The problem is we don't share those other parts of it. We don't talk about the what ifs. I didn't tell my kids, there's a chance that we can go get ice cream, but it's only going to happen if this, and this. They're kids. I don't have to tell them that, right? But every time that I do that and I break those commitments that I made, because the whole evening, you know what they're thinking? We're going to get ice cream tonight. The number of times that I've done this to my people, number of times that it comes out of my mouth and I'll say something, and I wish that when my words would go out, there'd be like these tags or chains on it with all the different responsibilities and that it's just out there now and I can see it. But words just disappear. Not on paper, and it's just out there. The only people that know it is me and the other person. I got a lot of things in my head. It's interesting. When's the last time you made a promise to yourself? What time did you tell yourself you were going to get up this morning? Were you going to work out? Was there something you were going to do before you got here? Did you keep the promise? And I break commitments to myself all the time. If you want to be somebody that holds other people accountable, it has to start here. I had to change long before I could hold anybody accountable. I'm still growing. It's hard. Accountability is doing what you say and that there's a timeline. There's a second part here. It's when you'll say you'll do it by. So you know what we do a lot of times? We just don't put a timeline on it. We don't add something onto the second part of that. It's easier, right? If I just say, right, the kids, I didn't tell them we're going to leave by 9:30 or we're going to do this. I just said we're going to go get ice cream. And we just kind of leave that last part off. Think about the number of people that are in your life when you say you're going to do something. Don't question when you're going to do it, or don't ask for specifics. I should say that the other way. What are the number of people that actually ask you? When you say, hey, I'm going to do this, and this, they say, oh, good. When are you going to get it done by? That's a very small number, but that's what accountability is. So here's the question. So number one, I have to do that with myself. Number two, I need to do it with my people. I have to be able to change the culture. I have to be able to get to an environment that says, when we say we're going to do something, you can bank on it. So I spend a lot of time in a lot of different organizations, right? And there are some organizations, it doesn't last very long. Because when we start putting timelines on things, it gets really uncomfortable. There's a lot of excuses that come out. And either I leave or they leave. Now, I get it. I've got more excuses than most people. So once we know our clarity, and we can start figuring out what are the things that we need to be doing. What are the important things that are going to move the ball forward on our goals? Now, I come out of the sales world. I'm going to skip ahead here. I come out of the sales world, and what happens with us in behavior is we talk a lot about prospecting. The amount of time that we have to spend being able to find new people to do business with. And it's the thing that gets pushed down every single time. There's always something else. It's like ice cream at the end of the night, but doesn't have the same rewards as ice cream. It's not as quick. So what we do is we spend a lot of time looking at the plan. We call this a cookbook for success. And what we do is we figure out what are the leading indicators, what are the things that if we do this on a regular basis, week in and week out, we know that we will be moving the ball forward and we will get closer to our goals. For me, that's the same thing. This is what my cookbook looks like, and every week, every month, I'm looking for 40 conversations. I need 40 conversations with new people every month to be able to hit my sales goals. On average, that takes somewhere between 70 to 80 attempts. I'm either picking up the phone, emailing, or texting, or saying something that I'm meeting somebody and asking a question about what they do. 70, 80 times. Out of that, I get about 40 conversations. Those 40 conversations, on average, lead me to about 7 or 8 initial meetings, first-time meetings with somebody. Additional meetings are important, but I don't care if I hit those or not. I care about the initial meetings. I know that if I hit my initial meetings, I'm going to hit my monthly goal, I'm going to hit my yearly goal, and I'm going to have everything that I need from in my late 40s to do what I want to do. That's what's driving me. People get a little weird when we start tracking stuff like this. This is not comfortable. I get a lot of different stories when people talk about this. This feels like Big Brother, micromanagement. It feels like a little bit too hard to work. You know how difficult it is for me to track all that? I'm a influencer on the disc. I'm a high I. My I is pegged. It's all the way at the top, which means that the amount of new ideas and new ways of doing things, in fact, just for me to do something the same way 2 times in a row, just about kills me. But I know that if I commit to doing this, and I'm held accountable by my leader, and I focus on this, and I don't do anything else in the month, but I get that done, I know that I will have moved the ball forward. I have come to love this. This is what helps me to make a difference in my world, to bring structure out of chaos. Now, what we get messed up on is we tend to manage the numbers and not the behavior. We focus on the wrong part of this. In my world in sales, we're always trying to drive sales and get sales up, but we forget about what it is that takes to get us there. We call this the difference between leading indicators and lagging indicators. The difference is a leading indicator is something that I have 100% control on. It's something that I know what's going to happen. I have no control over how many initial meetings I'm going to set. I have 100% control over how many emails I send, how many phone calls I make, how many text messages, how many times I reach out to somebody. 100% control. I know that it takes about 80 to get 40 conversations. I don't have a control out of the 40 people that I talk to who wants to meet. When does it make sense? Do they have something that we can talk about? Focus on leading indicators. Figure out what it is at the beginning that you need to get better at. This is what I do on a weekly basis. So I have the prospecting side. This is my personal cookbook. This is what helps me get the things done. I send this to my leader, Mike, every Monday. I tell him, I check the boxes off of what I did. If I did not check a box, I give a reason, what's happening, and what I'm going to do next month. 2 hours of prospecting time. What I found, if I don't have it on the calendar, I don't get it done. So the reason I have those first 2 on there is because I have to calendar those. So I'm looking every week. I have them built into my calendar, and then I move them as well. If I have a dedicated 2 hours that I spend, I'll hit my conversations. I have to be held accountable to that because as soon as my world gets chaotic, I struggle with it. The second one is to-do list time. I'm not a to-do list driven person. I'm calendar driven, which means if it goes on my calendar to work on my to-do list, I will get it done. There's some of you that are the other way around. If it's on your to-do list, you'll get it done, but you'll miss the important things of calendar events. Which is going to bring me to the next step, which is the weekly one-on-one. Here's the question. What would happen in your world if you would start meeting with your direct reports on the calendar, bank on it that it's going to happen, just the 2 of you, once a week? Most times when I talk to a leader, the number of times that they're spending one-on-one time with a direct report, well, I'll be honest, it's 0. It's not like they got to increase it. They got to take the first step. I had a conversation with a leader on Tuesday. I was asking him that question, how much time do you spend with your direct reports? He had 8. He said, well, we have meetings. How many people are in the meetings? Well, there's usually at least 2 or 3 or 4 of us. When's the last time you spent individual time with somebody? I don't know that I have. He said, what would happen? What would change in your world if you started doing that? I said, I figure it would be good. So I asked, who do you start with? Because he's not going to start with all 8, right? He's doing 0 now. He's busy. So we picked out what he wants to do. His first one, he works with his father. He picked his dad as one of the guys that he wants to do a weekly one-on-one with. I said, what would change in your world if 50 times throughout the year you spent 15 to 30 minutes with your dad just talking about what you're going to do differently? They talk all the time. They're in business together. It's just never the 2 of them sitting down. Weekly one-on-ones are one of the most difficult things that we can do. Kevin called it a bump, but he also does this as well. You have to spend time with your people. They need you. They need help. They need being held accountable. You can use the cookbook so simply. Ask them to start with 2 to 4 items. It's their things, not yours. Right? Mike didn't come up with those things for me. That was my choice. I use him to hold me accountable. It's not Big Brother. He's not micromanaging me. He's not trying to catch me in something. He's simply there to help me to get to my goals, which means that he helps me figure out what my goals are and then figure out what the plan is to get there. And then every time I tell him something, he's asking me, when are you going to get that done by? And he asked me, did you do it? It's not hard. We have a saying at the Ruby Group, get comfortable being uncomfortable. If you're going to grow and you're going to lead and you're going to do things differently, it's going to take effort. It's going to take change. It's going to be uncomfortable. Now, I put a note card at the end of your, or on your seat. If you don't have a business card with you, you can fill that out. Here's what I'm asking from you. I've got a lot of books at my table. I don't want to go home with a single book. I'm giving them all away. All I ask is if you come over there, give me a business card. But the other thing that I'm doing is I'm also offering a free seat at our leadership organization. We help leaders grow. We help them put together a plan, help them figure out how to get their team all going in the same direction. I'm offering a free seat for a 12-month access to that. You get to spend time with me. There's some online portions of that. If that's something you're interested in, if you'll give me your business card or fill out that index card, I will enter you in that drawing and I'll draw that at the end of the day. You can also come see me over at the table and give that. By the way, if there is somebody else that you know that's looking for somebody to speak in an organization, just put a T and circle it on your business card, on your note card. If there's somebody you think that I could talk to or you think would benefit, and they'd be like, I really appreciate you introducing me to Jordan, I'd appreciate that, put an I on there. If there's a meeting, if you'd like to learn more about what I do, an M. And then e-learning sign up, we've got lots of opportunity with video. You can learn more about this. And then I send out sales tips as well. So any one of those letters you can put on there. I appreciate your time. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Thank you.